Hello, everybody. Welcome to your very favorite Spider-Man podcast. Here comes the Spider-Cast. I am your co-host, Mike L., and as always, I'm joined by
Joshua Mervell. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Spider-Man comics from November of 1984.
That's right. We want to welcome back our frequent guest host, G.I. Jolie.
Who is she? I don't know who that is.
I'm not sure if you're having an existential crisis or not, but that's you.
Oh.
That's you.
I tried.
Oh, it's back.
All right.
It's not the same horn. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, no. The app was deleted?
I don't know. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint. But
Horn or not, we're happy to have you back.
I feel like there's disappointment to come, so I'm not, won't be
Boy.
overshadowed. Anyway. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, once again, we apologize for the quality of the comics, but good comics are coming down the pike. So, first this week, we're going to talk about Amazing Spider-Man number 258. We are actually just reaching, this is the end of the original Alien Symbiote saga, which is kind of exciting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I absolutely love this cover for this issue.
It is awesome.
For Amazing Spider-Man number 258, which we're going to be talking about first. But, I really, really like it. It's like Peter Parker, and he's being like pulled in either direction by the two different versions of the suit. So you've got the regular classic Spider-Man up at the top, and then the symbiote Spider-Man costume is pulling him the opposite way, and there's like these swirls in the background, and everything kind of looks like TV static, and it's super fun.
It's great. G.I. Jolie, what do you think of it?
Yeah, when I think of a comic book cover, I think this is cool. Like this is what would make me pick up a comic book, because it looks like a work of art. It looks like a book cover. It looks like a comic book cover. It looks like an appropriate cover. The art is really cool. Yeah. I also like the plot of whatever is happening is intriguing. Nothing.
Exactly.
There's no words, but there's something weird going on, and this is one of the first times where I've been awed by what I'm seeing, but also curious as to what the story could be.
Right. And for the record, while I do like text on a cover or even a title, sometimes a cover like this is a lot more effective. Like this is really cool. So let's jump into the story here. Once again, it's written by Tom DeFalco, drawn by Ron Frenz, inked by Joe Rubinstein. We've just picking up on the cliffhanger where we found out that Mary Jane Watson not only knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, she's always known. She's known for years. Okay? So this is something Tom DeFalco came up with. Not everyone likes that idea, but we can talk about that later, especially next issue. But anyway, so they have a quick argument. She takes off, or she's getting ready to take off, then Black Cat comes in and makes it even worse. But so even if at this point Mary Jane didn't know Spider-Man's identity, she knows now, because Black Cat stumbles in through the window and was like, "What's happening, lover? I just stopped by to whoops," and he's in his Peter Parker identity. So now it's been spoiled twice. So there's no going back, right? And so anyway, so then we touch base with what's his name, Thomas Fireheart, the Puma, and Peter's, worrying about what's going on. Mary Jane's worried about what's going on. Meanwhile, Peter falls asleep, and then he has his spider suit has a night on the town with him, which has been a running subplot the last few months, where the suit will take Spider-Man out while he's sleeping and do some web swinging. But in this issue, we get a nightmare sequence of Peter Parker kind of looking more like he did back in the early days, drawn by Steve Ditko. And he's in basically the kind of dream world that he's in on the cover here. Like we said earlier, like the TV static background, the black costume Spider-Man and the red costume Spider-Man fighting over him. Then he wakes up from this nightmare, and he once again he feels tired. He doesn't know what's going on because he doesn't know what's going on with the suit yet. So then he brings it to the Fantastic Four, and he gets Reed Richards to do some tests on it. And meanwhile we've got this running subplot with the Hobgoblin and the Rose trying to consolidate their power for the underworld, for New York City. And then basically later on, we learn Reed Richards comes to a conclusion, and he tells Peter Parker that this is not just from an alien world. It's actually an alien life form, and it's trying to take over his body. And so he's got to try and get it off, which he can't do because the suit won't let him. So Reed Richards, in all of his wisdom, gets the idea to use this like sonic blaster to knock it off of him, which of course works with one try. And then we get a scene that I thought was funny when I was 10 years old, and I still think it's funny now. So Spider-Man, Peter Parker, is in his underwear. He doesn't have a suit. He doesn't have a spider suit, and the FF doesn't know his secret identity. So he's desperately looking for a way to protect his identity. So the jokester, Johnny Storm, he's like, okay, well, I've got this old FF costume I can give you, but we don't wear masks. So what am I gonna do for a mask? He gives him a paper bag to stick over his head. Course. And then it's so awesome. And then he's got to give him a lift like halfway home in the Fantastic Car, which looks like a bathtub. And then not until Spider-Man is kind of like making his way home, and he comes across a crime in progress, do we find out that not only is he in an FF suit, not only is he wearing a paper bag, but Johnny Storm put a "kick me" sign on the back of the suit. And so once he foils this crime, the press and all these civilians surround him, and they've got questions for him, and they want to know who he is. And that's when we see the suit or the sign on the back that says "kick me." But then he just takes off. He goes back home. No one knows who he is. It's kind of funny. Oh, and then we get this little subplot here of where it's snowing in New York City, which we don't know why, but we have to buy Thor 349 to find out. So anyway, then Mary Jane comes back home. They're about to have their big talk, and then we get this little cliffhanger with the alien costume, locked up in this little, whatever you want to call it, tube thing in the Baxter Building. And it's plotting its revenge. And that is the end. Next issue, Mary Jane Watson reveals her tragic past, plus the Hobgoblin strikes. And that is our issue. And I thought it was really enjoyable. And, the Tom DeFalco run has not been quite as strong as the Roger Stern run, but the premise of this issue is great. It's the climax of the story. So I thought it was really good. G.I. Julie, what did you think?
I actually really liked it. It was like thick with stuff happening and funny bits and funny visual bits and villains all in a room plotting and doing what villains do. Like, that was silly. They're all in a room hanging out with the Hobgoblin. But I loved it because that's what I assume that you do all day, meet in hotel rooms and test out each other's equipment and talk about foiling Spider-Man or who insert superheroes name here plot. But okay, it felt like a little bit team uppy when they introduced the Fantastic Four, and then I don't want to spoil the Marvel team up that we are going to talk about, but somebody else makes another appearance in it, and it feels like an extension of this issue. It feels otherwise. The story was even though it was part of an ongoing story, it felt cohesive, and there was a start and a beginning, or a beginning and an end. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't think that the paper bag thing was as hilarious. It was ridiculous. Yeah, that he was like, oh man, I'm wearing this ridiculous getup, but there's crime. So he can't help but fix the crime. Mm-hmm. And he almost gets found out, or he gets all kinds of media attention. There happen to be 50 cameras on the streets. They all want to know his name, and he's wearing this embarrassing no mask, a kick me sign, and maybe a suit that's a little bit too big for him.
Mm-hmm. And bare feet.
Yeah. So it's just weird. And then the most hilarious thing to me is that he's just like, oh my God, my life can't get any worse than this. this happened and this happened and Black Cat this and Mary Jane that, and now it's snowing.
Right.
It's like he's not wearing
Just
any shoes, right? And I'm like, oh God, he truly is pathetic.
Yeah,
it's like Charlie Brown, eh?
Yeah, I think that's why I like this issue so much. We didn't have this like big bad guy coming in and wreaking havoc. Spider-Man really doesn't fight anybody besides
good point.
Besides those like goons that he just kind of like stops a robbery or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. So like it's really of no consequence to the story, and I really like that because we get to focus a little bit on Peter's life and just how much it's falling apart and like nothing goes his way. I absolutely love this gag with the paper bag. Like it feels like it fits. It's not just like a gag for gag's sake.
Right.
Like it feels natural. And I think this suit comes up a few other times in comics history.
I think it's referred to. Yeah, it must be.
Yeah. Because I'm pretty sure I've seen this a few times with him with the paper bag Fantastic Four suit. So yeah, that's really fun, and I actually really like the stuff with the Fantastic Four. We don't need to stop the story and explain how Peter knows the Fantastic Four or who the Fantastic Four are. Spidey just is like, hey, I know these scientist superheroes. If this is the first comic book you've ever read, you understand what's happening. Like, they don't need to stop and bash you over the head with who these characters are. And we get these like fun moments with the gang kind of interacting with each other. It totally makes sense that Reed would be the first person he'd go to after like not knowing what this like weird sentient costume with black goop is. Like trying to find out. So yeah, I really like this issue.
Yeah, me too. A classic Spider-Man story. I actually forgot this is the issue where he got the paper bag costume, because I knew about the costume, but I couldn't remember where it was from. So that was, great. Again, like you said, like the way that they introduced the FF is perfect, because it's one of those classic Marvel things where if you need a lawyer, you go to Matt Murdock. If you need a scientist, you go to Reed Richards. And it's really natural. The Hobgoblin thing, I don't mind. It's kind of a slowly developing subplot, and I'm looking forward to see where it goes. And I personally don't like the decision to reveal that Mary Jane not only knows his identity but has known for years. I really don't like that, but we'll talk about it more next issue. The inking by Joe Rubinstein, again, it kind of ruins the pencils. It makes it look really amateurish, but the actual storytelling is classic Marvel storytelling, so I don't mind that. And then we get a little bit of Puma in here, so I'm looking forward to see where that goes. And so basically another classic issue of Spidey, so I definitely recommend this issue. I'm assuming you do, Jolie?
Yeah. I do. Without going into too much detail again, I do. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't hate the whole Mary Jane thing. I don't love it, though. I don't know where they're going with it.
I like it a lot better than the Black Cat stuff that's going on. Like, this Felicia stuff is so annoying. I mean, even in this issue, it's like, I rolled my eyes when I first started reading this, because I'm like, oh no, is this going to be one of these issues? Because we have MJ and Peter talking, and then Black Cat barges in again, and then she gets upset that Peter is talking to another woman, and like storms off right after MJ does, and Peter Parker accidentally shoots web at her. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh, you shot a web at me. Okay, I guess we're cool. Like that was so stupid. She completely 100% forgives him right away, because he shot a web at Felicia instead of MJ to make Felicia stop instead of MJ. So like she's all is forgiven now in her eyes. Like,
right.
I don't I don't like how she's written at all.
No. And if they start to write the fact that the symbiote wants Black Cat around and it purposely did that, I'm going to burn the world to the ground. I just don't know about that, because I have a feeling that that's why those webs came out.
Yeah, I will say, I feel like the symbiote suit felt a little short. Like, I was kind of looking forward to more of him with the suit. And I know it does come back as, like, a character, and then eventually Venom shows up, and, like, it is a larger story later. But I thought that there was more.
You know what? I did too. I did feel that, absolutely. But because I know there's more coming up very soon, I didn't really mind.
Right.
Okay.
But on that note, we should go.
Are we ready?
Are you ready is the question.
Are we gonna do this? We're gonna do Marvel.
We're gonna
Team
do
Up
this.
147.
Yes, we are. Josh,
only a few more. You know what?
Take it away.
This issue started off kind of strong for me. It started off pretty good. I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. There's some cool stuff, and then everything just falls apart in the classic Marvel team up way. So in issue 147, we have Spider-Man teaming up with the Human Torch, and the return of the Black Abbott. So we have Spidey. Sorry, what's that?
Sorry. I said ugh. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, ugh is about right. Black Abbott is... I've read this issue and then went back and reread this issue, and I still don't understand what the Black Abbott's deal is. I had to look up the wiki to understand what was happening, because it's so stupid. Anyways, so we start off with Spidey swinging through New York, and he runs into these jets that are like chasing each other, and this one jet shoots a missile at the other. So Spidey's got to stop this missile because he doesn't know who's in the ship, so he doesn't want an innocent person to die just in case it's an innocent person. So he's like trying to redirect this missile, and he ends up shooting it into a water tower. And we see Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, notice this, so he flies out to help Spider-Man. The two of them kind of start chasing the ships again, and the one that was being chased is crashing and on fire. Johnny goes and saves the person that's in the ship, and Spidey swings down and saves some civilians on the street. And then we get like a flashback to what we just read about in Amazing with Spidey. I mean, it's not good, but I understand why they had to have it here, because they're explaining why he doesn't have the symbiote costume anymore.
Right.
So whatever. Then we catch up with Peter as he's back at his apartment, and this guy named Mr. Abbott knocks on the door and starts talking about this program, this like science program where they're going to pay him a bunch of money, and Peter automatically, his spider senses are like going wild, and he knows that this guy is like not who he says he is, but he says that
but he works for the World Peace Association. What's not to trust?
Yeah. I can't remember who his friend is. He like Abbott named
what's
Steve,
his name?
I think.
Steve Hopkins.
He like name drops him and says, "Hey, he recommended, we come get you." And Peter kind of says like, "Whoa, I think he's trying to mind control me."
What?
I don't understand why he would know this, or like, it doesn't make much sense. Me describing it is pretty much how it happens in here.
Right.
It doesn't really click. Then we cut over to Johnny, and he is at the hospital, and the person that he saves isn't going to make it. He's in like critical condition. So he goes and talks to him, and he pretty much tells Johnny that he was working at this like facility out in Jersey, and he kind of came to his senses after like snapping out of hypnosis. So he stole one of the jets to tell somebody and to escape the place, and that's when he was chased by the other jet and was shot down. So then we cut over to Peter, and he's at the facility now, and he only agrees so he can kind of do some undercover work and try to figure out what the heck is going on and hopefully save his friend Steve. And then that's when Black Abbott reveals himself, but he's wearing a different costume. He's wearing a purple and black costume instead of his red and black costume. I don't know if they really... I can't remember if they make reference to this or not, but he shows up later in a different colored costume, I believe. I don't...
No.
There's yeah, he does. Yeah, he does. Anyways, Human Torch, he also goes to this facility because of the guy who just died in the hospital bed to try to stop this thing going on. So Human Torch and Spider-Man team up to pretty much stop what's going on here. And Black Abbott has like a bunch of different powers that he's using. Human Torch gets hypnotized and turns on Spider-Man, and Spider-Man has got to kind of like stop him. So the Black Abbott is like now splitting himself into different forms. It looks like there's multiple Black Abbotts, and I thought that he had like just a bunch of superpowers. I thought he was able to like use the energy blasts, disintegrate people, mind control people, split himself into like multiple different versions of himself. And I honestly don't know if it was even explained in this one, but what it is the Black Abbott used to belong to this like group, or this like family of monks, and they would meditate, and they learned how to like unlock their minds and use superpowers that everybody has but just hasn't unlocked yet. And the Black Abbott found a way to control all of the other monks.
What?
Yeah, so the reason why that there's multiple people here is not because he can multiply himself, but that this one guy is controlling a bunch of other guys. That's why we have some of them wearing black and purple costumes and one of them wearing a black and red costume. I'm assuming that the black and red costume Black Abbott is the one controlling the other ones.
Oh, brother.
But, I mean, once Peter and Johnny kind of come to, they pretty much leave the facility and that's it. And then at the end of the issue, we get this, like, callback to the end of Amazing with the symbiote knocking on the glass. It's the exact same
right.
6 panels. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, this issue, wow, it sucked.
Yep.
I mean, there's so much that I left out, too. Like one of the Black Abbotts is using this mind control machine, and it's like, this is a test. This is still a test. I don't know if this is gonna work or not, but I'm gonna use this like untested equipment to try to mind control Spider-Man and to wipe his memory. And it's, oh man, it blows. I really don't like the Black Abbott.
Yeah, it's terrible.
This character really kind of sucks. I don't understand what he's doing, really.
The thing is, first of all, we do want to say the first, 4 or 5 pages with that jet thing were pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And I was like kind of going along with it. And also, I want to say, compared to last issue when the art was pretty terrible, this art was actually much better, and it's the exact same art team. So,
interesting.
I can't. Yeah, it's Greg LaRocque and Mike Esposito. And last month, the art was like very pedestrian and just dull. But this month, it's like, I don't know what happened if someone put a gun to Greg LaRocque's head, but the layouts are much better. Like, just look at the opening shot of Spider-Man swinging, the sequence with the jets. You know, there's a little bit more variation on close-ups and wide shots. The inking is a little bit more polished, I think. But then it all just goes downhill from there. Like,
right. I mean,
the idea of a cult is okay, but again, you just get into this issue where there's all of this talking and all this explanation and exposition, and I don't want to read any of it. And just like you, I kept, going through sequences and being like, what is going on? I have to go back and reread it, and I still don't know what happened. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's super confusing because, like, I'm sure that they have an idea when they're coming up with the story, but it doesn't seem like they're properly conveying it or, like, telling that story. And things are just kind of happening because that's what their idea is, that's what their idea is telling them to do. They just kind of have to do it to fill this comic, and it's not...
Right.
Like, none of it is really making sense or, like, translating well. The stuff that does make sense is when they're trying to be like, oh, there's two ships chasing each other. Why are they attacking each other? Where did these come from? And then that's, like, a pretty straightforward, like, mystery, trying to figure out what's going on. And then after that, it just becomes, like, sci-fi nonsense with, like, this facility, and they're jumping around from room to room. They're hopping in spaceships. People are getting mind controlled for no reason. There's, like, multiples of this bad guy that are showing up without explanation. Like, things just start happening.
Yep. And,
So-
like, usually Marvel Team Up makes me angry. Maybe not as angry as Josh gets. But, like, this one made me pretty angry. Like, I stopped. I got up, huffed, and walked away. Because it was so convoluted.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I hate this. I effing hate this. I can't. But this shot of Spider-Man upside down is cute. Like, you know what I mean? And
Right.
then, but I was like, no, doesn't make up for it. This is god awful. How
Well-
does this pass muster? I don't get it.
The thing is most of these issues, the feeling I get, like, we all have friends that are filmmakers. We've all read really terrible screenplays, right? And and for me, whenever I read them, I always think the same thing. I see what you're trying to do there, but there's always a way that you can throw out 3/4 of this crap and make it so much better by writing it in a more intriguing way. And like Josh, you said, at least with the plane thing, it's written like a mystery, right? And
Right.
there's an old saying that every story is a mystery, and that's, I think, what this story needs is, like, okay, the raw, like the elements are there. Like, okay, there's a cult, blah, blah, blah. But wouldn't it have been better if Peter Parker ran into the Steve guy, almost like Eyes Wide Shut? Like, Steve is going to this cult thing, and Peter Parker goes with them, and he has to unravel the mystery of this cult. But instead, the guy comes to Peter Parker, and he's like, oh, well, I know Steve Hopkins, so... And then it's just... the way that the story unfolds is not intriguing. It's not mysterious, right? It doesn't make you want to turn the page and, oh, I got to find out what's going to happen next. Because it's all just shoved down your throat with exposition. So it's like, I'm sorry, but whoever this guy, I mean, Cary Burkett, apparently he's done other things. But in this story, it shows that he just doesn't know how to write a story. I'm sorry. You know?
And it's so strange because it's always Marvel Team Up, and I wonder how much of it is because, like, possibly the story ideas or the premises are already made, and then they just bring in a writer to write what's going on. I'm curious. I'm curious as to how much is just the writer.
I don't know, but don't forget, it's also been a rotating group of writers, but with Peter Parker and Amazing, it's been the same writers for 2 years, a year, whereas Marvel
Right.
Team Up rotates. So that
I
could
just don't
be.
get
but,
who's in the room saying that this is okay.
well, Danny Fingeroth. See, this is the funny thing about these editors. It's like, okay, so this guy gets paid to be the editor of Spider-Man. Well, I've read his stories. He did write some stories as well, and they're garbage. So if he's not a good writer, what qualification does he have to be a good editor? Other than, like, making phone calls and getting things scheduled on time, So at least the next editor coming in, Jim Mosley, Christopher Priest, he has a career as an established, critically acclaimed writer on, like, Batman, on Black Panther, on other things like that. So I don't know. You just got to wonder. It's like, yeah, if the guy in charge is not even a good writer, then how does he know what makes a good story?
Yeah, like, sorry, Marvel, but, like, this sucked.
Yeah.
Like, they put out Johnny Storm with an industrial fire extinguisher.
Yeah, like
Terrible.
try to put out the sun with a fire extinguisher.
Yep.
Like they always talk about how like hot he gets and how like he can get to like dangerous levels of, you know, fire and heat and like radiation, but a fire extinguisher puts him out.
Yep. But these cult guys in like, you know, jumpsuits, 2 of them. It took two of them with 2 industrial fire extinguishers to just like put that guy out. Like, stop. Terrible.
So it's safe to say that I'm never going to read this issue again, and I don't recommend anyone else reads it either. We read it for you. Gia, Julie, do you agree with that?
Pick it up and have a look at this Abbott guy's cape. 'Cause it's like villain, but make it fashion. I like the costume, like a lot. But that's the only thing that's great about this. Or do you know what? Maybe he appears in this costume somewhere else outside of this issue. Just find that image. Actually, just Google it. Forget this.
Just Google it.
Just Google it.
I mean, I know more about this character from like one sentence after Googling this character.
Right.
And it's one thing to leave things a mystery and not understand what's happening and having like the story or his powers unravel. But they're just throwing things out there and they're not really telling a story. They're just showing you, look, there's multiple of them. Oh, look, they've all got different powers, and it's
right.
You know, it doesn't really make sense.
Yep. Woo!
So,
okay. Only how many more to go? 3 more?
Yeah, I think 3
more. 3 more to go.
Do they replace Marvel Team Up with something?
Yes, with Web of Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay.
We'll see how that goes. Anyway, okay. So now we're going to move on to Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man number 96. G.I. Julie, would you like to do the honors?
Oh, am I doing the honors? Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry, this just it took me a second here. I remember now. So we have the same sort of. I think I didn't read the last issue before this one, but I guess Cloak and Dagger. We're still dealing with them, and we're still dealing with Silvermane of all people, and also the Kingpin. So the Kingpin and his number 1 henchman, the Answer, who I low-key love. So stupid. But could you imagine having that power? Anyway, so we're still at that point where Silvermane is inside Cloak, and Dagger, I think where we had left off is where Dagger had just shot the last of her light into Cloak so that he could remain powered up, but he's also really weak. Somehow Silvermane, who is inside, stay with us, who's inside Cloak, is sapping that power, but the Answer has whisked Dagger away because she is, quote, the answer to saving the life of the Kingpin's love interest. I can't remember her name.
Oh, Vanessa.
That's it. So something has happened to her, which I've missed. And the Answer has said, Dagger is what will save her. Which leads to my favorite panel. How do you know that? Well, and then the Answer goes, am I not the answer? And he's like, oh, of course.
And then next panel, blast it! Smashes the desk. Like, it's ridiculous.
So, oh yeah, so great. So anyway, I don't really, I know. Cloak. Somehow, no, sorry. I don't know what happens on this panel after he trashes the table. I don't know what's happening here. But Silvermane, he sees Silvermane. Silvermane gets into his compound. I'm not sure how Silvermane has been able to follow, because he's supposed to be inside Cloak. But anyway,
he got out.
He got out because Cloak, like when people go into his like other dimensional Cloak, he like gets their powers, but he's also like reading their minds, I guess. I never really got that before, but earlier, like, he's screaming because he's feeling all of the torment that Silvermane has gone through. So Silvermane purposely went into the other dimension to, like, cripple Cloak and make his, like, mind go kind of crazy from all of the pain rushing into his mind all at once.
Oh, Jesus.
So, sure. So that's how he's escaped Cloak's, like, dimension.
Oh, gee, and that's right. I just skipped right over it. That's right at the start of the book.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, it's I don't know how I missed it. It's highlighted with the words "the final answer," which is, you know, kind of off color, but okay. It's something. It's weird for, you know, a house of Jewish men to be calling that the final answer.
Good point.
But
well, I think it's the final solution you're thinking of, right?
Well, it's pretty close. It's pretty darn close. So anyway, somehow we have to tie this all into Peter, who is at this point, because all three of the books tie together, at this point in the story, he's trying to fix his web slingers, find old ones at work, because he's got to get his old suit back up and running, because, you know, he's got to go out and fight. So
Fight crime. Yeah.
that's what he's doing. He recalls, he's just standing around in his underwear, recalling the story for us about Mr. Fantastic and Johnny Storm kind of helping him figure out that the symbiote is an alien life form. But they did it in a short amount of time, which I'm thankful for. But there's just these like 4 sexy panels of like Peter Parker just standing around all hunky in his underwear, like an underwear catalog. It's weird. Like it's just weird to me, because it's several like different kind of poses and then one silhouetted in shadow.
Yeah, you're right.
like someone had been taking figure drawing lessons and they wanted to, like, you know, use or display the fruits of their labor. But anyway,
I'd like to see the model who stood in the putting the pants on mid pose for like a whole minute.
Right? Because he must have been strained to, you know, get all that shadow
Right.
in there. But anyway, who walks in? But I know. No one walks in. He finally gets his old costume back up and running. And it's really funny. He's like, the original is still the greatest. So that's it for the symbiote, the black costume.
Right.
Right?
Gone for good.
Yeah, it didn't seem like there was anything like major that happened, except for the fact that had we not read the 2 issues of Amazing and Team Up, we wouldn't know that the symbiote is hungry and looking for revenge. Like, we didn't, you know what I mean? There wasn't too big of a mystery.
Right,
it didn't create
right.
too big of a mystery. But anyway, Felicia's in this issue as well. And she spots him
End of
and
sentence.
right? Felicia's here.
Oh,
And,
yeah, Felicia's here too.
And what she's doing, what she does best, which is worry about why Peter is worried about other women. So Peter's like, I really gotta help get Dagger back. And she's like, just playing like the jealous non-girlfriend. Like, and it's for 4 panels. She's just grilling him about why he gives this much of a shit. And it's annoying. Like, I'm annoyed for Peter, but also annoyed at the writers for writing her like this. She's like, well, but she also knows where Dagger is, because she's being played, like, you know what I mean? She's one of Kingpin's pawns. So she's trying to keep secrets, but also she's like, well, I could help Peter. I know where she is. So, like, I'll just kind of, like, help him out by not telling him. And
I really want to sit Peter down and just be like, listen, like, I know that you really care for her, but I don't think she's good for you. Like, she's causing you she's she's making your life miserable. She's not treating you right. She doesn't like you for you. She only likes you for your secret identity. Like, this is not working out, my dude. It kills me. I hate this. I really hate this, like, story that they've written for her, because she was such a fun character before. I really liked whenever she popped up. Yeah,
and aside from, like, those red flags, there's, like, a million other red flags.
Right.
Like, even if she didn't, like, wasn't just using him for the adventure, she's, like, uber jealous. She's kind of a bitch. And, like, she's bougie in a weird way.
There's not enough wine crafts in the world to save this relationship.
No. 0. But anyway, okay. So she accidentally, quote, accidentally leads Spider-Man to where they're keeping Dagger, which is at, like, their compound. Do you know what? Mary Jane's in here too, but that really doesn't matter, because all they do is use that as a device to, like, explain that it's snowing and to tell you to read Thor,
which at this point is annoying.
Yeah. Yeah,
it was cool the first time, but
yeah, and then, like, even Betty is in it, and Flash Thompson, and you kind of get, like, he's like, she's like, coming from the cold. There's these things running around. They're armored men. I don't know what they are. And again, it's like, well, read Avengers 249 and Thor 350 to find out what the hell this is. It's like, those 2 pages didn't have to exist at all.
Right.
2 pages? Yeah. 2 full pages of, like, weird exposition to sell 2 other books. Anyway, so maybe they had to explain why in the next sequence of events, Spider-Man and Felicia are, like, Black Cat, same person, are flying around New York, but it's now snowing, like, snowstorm, full snowing. They run into Dagger, who is on his way to the same building where they run into Cloak, who is sort of wandering towards the same building where Kingpin and is kind of hiding, and because he can feel her energy, and he, like, pops himself into there.
Right.
Silvermane is in there already, just, like, fucking up Kingpin's henchmen, just on the ground floor. He's pushed, like, a hole into the building, and he's just, like, messing it all up. But no one cares. I don't understand that part. Like, is Silvermane trying to get Dagger, like, sap the rest of her energy? Is that what the...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still stupid. Got it. Okay. So, on the highest of all of the floors, they cut to Kingpin. Cloaks. I don't know what you'd call that power. He just happens to, like, appear as, like, a piece of fabric. As, like, a piece of fabric.
Teleportation thing.
Kind of
yeah, because
yeah.
he jumps through his dimension and then jumps back into ours, I guess, through the cape.
Okay. Well, he does that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, he does that, and he gets up to the highest floor. And, oh, God. Just at the same time that Spider-Man and Black Cat get there, and wouldn't you know, Kingpin grabs Cloak, because he's all weak and sort of defenseless, and he uses Cloak as a shield, and Black Cat, in true Black Cat fashion, gets in the way accidentally while she's jumping at Kingpin, because at this point she's decided it's either I team up with Kingpin secretly or I'm with Peter, and she's like, no, I'm with Peter. So she jumps at Kingpin. She's like, well, there goes our relationship, and she jumps into Cloak. Whoops. And I don't know if she disappears or not, but at this point, Silvermane has made his way up to the main floor. That highest floor where everyone is. And he jumps into the fight. Now everybody's fighting. And I honestly, what happens? The answer is, like, we have to stop this fight. He gives up his life force, because he's got, I almost said it. I almost did it too. I almost pulled the Kingpin and was like, how did he know to do this? Well, shit. he's got all the answers. He grabs Dagger's hand, and Dagger like sucks his life force out until he's like gone, and that revives her. But it gives her a lot of power, and she becomes like this like sparkly gold being, which is kind of neat. And she uses that life force when she touches Silvermane to restore his humanity, and he gets so overwhelmed by his own humanity that he busts a hole through the wall and just climbs down and takes off. And that's how they defeat Silvermane. Because Silvermane gets depressed and leaves.
Right.
Yeah. So Dagger sees Cloak, revives Cloak. They're like, we gotta get out of here. Screw Vanessa. Kingpin's like, oh, but before you leave, I know I kidnapped you, but please help me. And then Cloak tells Dagger, no, we can't help people like him. And they fade away. They warp or, away. Leaving Kingpin angry and only Spider-Man and kind of Black Cat to take the brunt of whatever is left. But they just kind of fly away too. And then that's it. Everyone, right. Every single person, every single character that was wrapped up in this storyline actually physically just leaves the storyline and ends the storyline. And then it cuts to the same last page that was in the last two books with the symbiote in his like FF tube wanting revenge.
Right.
I don't know if that says the Hermit Age or Hermitage, but I'm interested because it says the next issue is an offbeat story, the most offbeat story yet. But let's get back to this this ending here because it was terrible.
Yeah.
So we
so
see
much
earlier.
Happened.
So we know earlier, Dagger is able to cure people's like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like the things that are wrong with them, like their evil sides or their bad sides, and like make them pure. We see her do that to a couple of like junkies. And like she shoots them with these light daggers, and then all of a sudden they don't crave drugs anymore. They're no longer addicted to drugs. So, I mean, this is something that she could do already, but then, with Silvermane, she has to like go into this like Super Saiyan mode to cure Silvermane. And, like, Silvermane is the guy that tortured them and, like, did these, like, drug testings on them. But she still cured him of all this. And then when Kingpin says, hey, you just cured that dude and made him not evil. Do you think you could cure my wife who is dying? And they're like, nah, we actually gotta go.
Yeah, that's a little harsh.
Look at the time. Oh, man, we really gotta be getting out of here. Like, it's so weird. It's really strange that they decided to just be like, no, I don't think we're going to help you. We're not allowed to help bad guys when they just cured their arch nemesis who they've been trying to kill for, like, every single appearance they've had.
Right.
And they just let him be, he's like, he takes his leave is what the caption says, as Silvermane just climbs down the building. And they just let him go.
Right.
They let Silvermane take his leave. And poor Kingpin is left here with, like, Vanessa, like, limp in his arms.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I feel like I should feel bad for Kingpin in this moment, and I think it's, like, a powerful panel. I really like the art in that panel, on that last page, but...
right.
But I don't feel anything for him because, like, what was his plan? Like, is she dying from being evil?
No, she's been sick like forever. I don't remember why she's sick, but
why would? But like, Dagger just like cures them of like cures their mind, right, and like makes them pure again. Like what's killing her that dagger could help out with? Unless she just has life force energy, but we haven't really seen that from her. At least I don't think.
Well,
No.
her power is kind of undefined, but I guess the idea is that in the context of this story, she could help Vanessa, but the fact that she doesn't is kind of bizarre, if you ask me. But who knows?
Yeah. So I also have another question.
Sure.
With Cloak, is his power the cloak, or does he have the ability to open up these dimensions?
Oh, I'm sure it's in him, but the cloak is like the access point to it, I think.
Okay.
I think. Yeah.
Because like Kingpin just grabs him and uses him as like a weapon.
Yeah.
/ shield.
Like that's
and it's just
crazy.
Weird. Yeah, it's weird that he isn't just like, no, I don't think I am gonna suck up this person. Like
Right.
he's just like, nothing I can do. He's holding me. Like he can't control the portal or anything.
Yeah.
just
Who
strange.
Yeah, I don't
knows?
know.
I'm trying to
Yeah,
find it myself, but
It's
here
on
we go.
page 17, original 17.
Yeah, it looks like Black Cat gets kind of tangled up but not fully absorbed. But it says that his abilities are to teleport himself and those around him over long distances in a shroud of dark force energy. That he also has intangibility. He can transport victims through the dark force. He can see the fears of those he touches. Darkness and shadow he can generate and control darkness and shadow, and he can use his darkness to cause insanity and paranoia, and he has a psionic link with Dagger. So it seems like he should be able to control that.
Yeah. Yeah, again, things just seem to like happen for no reason. Like, why is Black Cat even here at this point? Like, it feels like the only reason she's here is so Kingpin can, like, throw out the, you owe me a debt, and Spider-Man and Black Cat can be like, what the heck are you talking about? And then they brush it off like nothing happened. We don't ever revisit that in this issue again. The answer is the goofiest freaking character. They should have called him the MacGuffin. Because he just knows everything for no reason. And, I mean, even, like, him being the key to everything and healing Dagger, like, it's just... I think I like Team Up better than this issue.
Well, here's the thing is, I don't hate this issue or this series, but what's weird about it is because Spider-Man has 3 series, it's almost like they have 2 concurrent versions of Spider-Man, but they have 2 totally different supporting casts. And you were asking why Black Cat is in this. It's because she is the co-lead of the book, but she's not really in Amazing, and she's never in Marvel Team Up. So it's like she doesn't exist in those books, right? But here, she's like...
But she had more to do in Amazing Spider-Man this week than she did in this one.
Yeah, that's probably true. You're right.
Like, it's just so strange. Like, I don't know. If there's no reason for the character to be there, then don't bring them in.
Oh, yeah.
It's just so weird.
She's just getting in the way like usual, and to me that just speaks of an inability to write this character in, even though she's supposed to be here.
Right.
They're like, how do we reconcile her being here? Well, let's just make her the jealous female. Like, again, and again, and again. Oh, and while they're fighting, how do we get her out of the whole fight scenario? I know. We'll throw her into the cape. But she...
Yeah.
Jesus.
It does, it's so weird. I mean, there's so much in this book that just, like, this issue that kind of just annoys me. Like, even with Spider-Man, like, going back to his old costume, why not just leave him in the Black Symbiote costume for this issue? Like, does it all need to happen all at the same time?
Because chronologically, it probably came out afterward, and they're trying to coordinate it, so that if you read this a week later.
But but for the story, it doesn't make sense, because last issue we have like the last thing we see is Dagger being kidnapped by the Answer, and he is in the Black Symbiote costume. And then in this issue, we see him trying to figure out his other costume, which means Marvel Team Up and the Amazing Spider-Man happens in between Dagger being kidnapped and then Dagger being saved. You know what I mean? So it's just like Spider-Man's like, well, too bad for Dagger. I'm going to go on my own adventures now and come back maybe later.
See, this is the problem, again, is where you're right. It's like Spider-Man has all these adventures, but it's like chronologically this happens after Amazing, but like all of a sudden he has a different supporting cast, and it's all about the Kingpin and Cloak and Dagger, but there's no mention. I mean, they force in the mentions of FF and all that and the snow, but usually it doesn't make sense. And the problem is like, you know, if you have like a TV show with a showrunner, let's just use Buffy as an example. Every episode may be written by a different person, but there's always Joss Whedon there coordinating everything, and every episode fits perfectly. But can you imagine if you watched Buffy one week and it was called The Amazing Buffy, and then the next week it was called Spectacular Buffy, but it was like a completely different supporting cast, different subplots, a different cinematographer, and they just shoved in references to the other show to make it seem cohesive. It just wouldn't work, right?
Yeah, it was called Angel. That's what happened.
Which I've never seen. Right, but there you go. Right.
Nah, kidding. It was a good well, once you get past season 4.
See,
but, okay, if you're using that as an example, yeah, exactly. And that is why they don't do that to TV shows.
Right, right.
So I don't understand why they do that to comics. Because it's like watching Buffy and then watching a spin-off, but not a spin-off because it is Buffy, but it's just a different title, but she's acting a little strange.
Yeah, and the thing is like, they tried in the 90s with Superman, they tried to make it so that the 3 or 4 week, like monthly Superman titles all lined up. So even though it was Superman number 75 followed by Adventures of Superman number 400 and whatever, it was actually another number on top of that with a triangle that said number 57, then number 58. But it was each chapter was written by a different person and drawn by a different person, so it never felt cohesive. It would have been better to have like 4 issues in a row done by the same art team, then 4 issues in a row done by the next art team. So that way at least you could get the feeling of, you know, some cohesion. But I think it would just make more sense, you know, in this case, to be like, okay, these are Spider-Man's adventures in the present day, and Spectacular is like 3 years ago or something, just so they could explain why they don't really line up, you know?
I don't mind the idea of him having like a different cast of characters for each book, as long as it makes sense that Spider-Man is kind of jumping back and forth. Like, we don't always see him at the Bugle, but we know that's part of his life, and we don't need to see it in every single issue to understand that there's different people in his life. But when they cross over like this and they don't make sense, that's when I think it gets messy. I mean, I think a good example of it done really well is the Marvel movies, the MCU, because you have one person, Kevin Feige, who is in charge of like the overarching story of every single movie, but then you bring in directors and writers to write the individual movies, and the only limitations that they have are that it fits in with the rest of the story.
Right.
So you can have Iron Man run off and have his own story with his own characters, but then you don't have to have every single character in his life present when he jumps over to the Avengers.
Right.
Right. So it all makes sense, like in fiction, what these characters are doing and what they're, you know, where they are in time, and you don't need to like, you know, mix things up, and it's just so strange. I don't really like how the stories don't connect, and like they're always like coming up with these plot holes because of it.
The thing is with the Marvel movies with Kevin Feige, there's only 2 or 3 Marvel movies per year. This is 2 or 3 comic books per month, plus 25 to 50 other comics per month, featuring other characters. So, I mean, it's obviously much harder to coordinate the comics, right? Because it's pretty cool that they shove the snowfall in from Thor, but then they hit you over the head with it. And if you try to line them up, they probably don't even match. But I don't know. I mean, they're trying, but in some ways they're overdoing it. In some ways they're underdoing it. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like with Spider-Man, you can do that with just 3 issues. I completely get that with, like, it might be hard to do it with every single book that's coming out, but with Spider-Man, at least, when it's the same character in between just 3 issues,
right?
Like, it feels like that could at least be manageable. I mean, even if he was in the Black Symbiote costume the entire time, and then at the end with this, like, cliffhanger, you can have like, instead of it saying meanwhile, you can have a caption that says, a few days or a few weeks later, you see Spider-Man swing across in his original costume, and then we cut over to the Baxter Building. Fantastic, Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four is doing tests on the symbiote, and then we see it again in the glass jar, like banging on the walls, and then turning to face the camera and end it. If you really need it to, like, every ending to kind of match up for next month. But it feels really weird because this is a part 2 of a story, and because things are changing, they have to, like, scramble to fix it.
Well, yeah, I guess ideally how it would work is you'd have, like, this would go on for 4 or 5 months. Then they'd go, okay, after the end of this issue, go back and read Amazing Spider-Man 252, and then that'll line up, and they can kind of go off on their own and then line up sort of in hindsight instead of trying to figure it out on the fly like the way they're doing now.
Yeah.
But anyway, so getting back to this issue, I thought it was okay. I don't love it, but I love the inking. The story's okay. I thought it was better than Marvel Team Up, so not a big recommendation, but I do think it's a fairly enjoyable issue of Spidey. G.I. Julie, what do you think?
Oh, yeah. Same. Like, fairly enjoyable, but mostly not great. Again, I, like, low-key love the answer. That's so stupid. And now I'll call him the MacGuffin. And now I want to know everything about him. But, like, okay. Josh, the way that Josh talked about Cloak and Dagger, the first time we sort of, that they came into this storyline, I was like, there's something. I really liked the way that you talked about them, and I was like, I need to know more about them because I missed that, and that I get what you were talking about from this issue. So if you like Cloak and Dagger and want to see them in another sort of, like, if you're a Cloak and Dagger completist, like if you have a Cloak and Dagger podcast where you only review appearances of them in comics, then this is, sure, it's a must read. But yeah, I recommend it. It's not terrible.
On that note, wait, Josh, did you recommend it, Josh? I don't remember.
I don't think so. No.
No?
I mean, no, I didn't. I really didn't like it. All of these characters, like, being juggled in this story, it was just so, like, busy and muddled, and it really didn't need to be. Like, it's kind of an interesting story, but then you have to shove Black Cat in here. You have to shove the Answer, Silvermane, Kingpin, Vanessa. Like, all of these characters are just like thrown into the pot. There's no reason for half of them to even be there. And I think it really takes away from the story, because we could be learning more about Kingpin and, like, why he's doing this. Like, we understand that he's trying to save his wife, but we don't really get any moments with him alone with her, like, with his own thoughts. We don't really get to see that. I want to be able to care about what the Kingpin is doing and why he's, like, hiring all of these goons to save his wife, but we're only hearing him say, "I'm trying to save my wife." We're not like seeing why we should care about him saving his wife. We're just told,
Right.
yeah, he's saving his wife. That's why he's doing all these bad things. And it's just, I feel like that's kind of the answer. I don't know. That's kind of the answer as to why all of these characters are here, because it's just like, yeah, the answer is here. Yeah, Silvermane's back. Like, there's no, like, we don't really get time with them to understand why they're doing things. We're just told that these characters are doing things.
This is true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
I personally didn't enjoy it. I'd rather have the mindless sci-fi stuff of Marvel Team Up than, like, be excited about, like, a cool story and then it just, like, falling apart and crumbling.
Right.
Because at least Marvel Team Up is, like, it's goofy already. You know what I mean? Like, I'm already kind of in the mindset of this is going to be just, like, comic book cheese, popcorn, nothingness. Where this is, like, I really want to know more about these characters and what's going on and feel the depth of the story. And it's just, like, you know, comic book soup. They're just throwing whatever they can in the pot and doesn't taste good.
Well,
Wow.
the good news
Eored
is
the enthusiasm out of that one.
the thing is, though, is that not only is Marvel Team Up being canceled in 3 or 4 issues, Al Milgrom is leaving Peter Parker of the Spectacular Spider-Man as of number 100.
Oh, wow.
So we will have a new writer after that. So let's hope things improve, right?
Oh, interesting.
Fingers crossed.
Spoiler! The writer from Marvel Team Up takes over for 2 issues. So it'll still suck. But that's
Marvel
okay.
Team Up 2.
Yeah, but it's
no.
okay because after that, Peter David will take over and everything will be good in the world. But anyway.
Okay.
Yep. So I guess that wraps up another episode of Here Comes the Spider-Cast. I'd like to thank G.I. Joe Lee for joining us this week.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Woo! All right.
You're welcome.
And Josh, you can take it from here.
We also want to thank you guys for listening to the show. It really helps when you leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts, or you can drop us a line on Twitter at HCTSpidercast. Please let us know what you guys think about the episodes, the issues that we're talking about too. We want to keep that comic conversation going, so please keep in touch.
That's right. So join us again next week when we review the epilogue of the Alien Symbiote Costume Saga, as well as 2 other Spidey comics. So until next Monday, this has been Here Comes the Spider-Cast.
All right, see you then.